during plastic and how we can get it back to without plastic. We live in a time where we don't need, the petrochemical industry and the fossil fuel industry to be the leading factors in our everyday life anymore. And so, with that, that's also run by many of the women educators in our organization. We did implement a project. It's called the Women's Health and Fitness Project. Predominantly was focused on the women, the mothers in our community, to get them to get out and socialize and work, be active, try to, cope with this new way of living in today's time. It can be very stressful on the mind, the spirit, and your body. So the women have decided to start that program and have facilitated that program for the last month now. And so that's our newest project that we've implemented. And of course, we're always addressing, the fossil fuel industry and the pipelines and, the fracking and LNGs. And it's all interrelated. It's all connected. As far as when we talk about our health and well-being, I always tell people environmentalism, the context of environmentalism and activism is a part of our culture and spirituality long before those words even existed. We're taught by our elders to leave a place better than the way that we found it. And we're just not doing that in today's time in a greater scheme of trying to leave a better earth, a better Mother Earth, a sustainable Mother Earth, and healthier Mother Earth for our next generation. So we try to work hard on trying to educate during these projects, but also educate in how we can do that a little bit more, be more conscious, bring down our footprint, and be more aware of how much we all contribute to the very thing that we're trying to stop, so that our children can have a healthy, sustainable future to look forward to. We all want our children to not just survive, but to thrive, and that's the objective. Is how do we implement that into our projects every day? So yes, thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to underscore something that you said, is that things like community care programs and services like food distribution don't have to come at the ultimate cost of the environment. And it's been on my mind as well. I think we were doing really well getting rid of single-use plastics. I mean, we had liberals on board. We even had some right wingers and Republicans like, we don't need to be so wasteful. Why are we being so wasteful? And over the last year, we've pretty much lost almost all that progress. So, we have to build that back up. So thank you for incorporating that into into the services that you provide to the community. That's incredible. And I have another thought, but I'll include it when I prompt you on the next round. So next, we want to go to Hank, and we want to hear a little bit about. Well, I guess this is the time where you have an extended time, Mr. Jones, to talk about the work of the Black Panthers when it comes to mutual aid, when it comes to the 10-point program and community safety and security. Can you talk a little bit about your experience and what, how it's honestly still extraordinarily relevant?
Yes, you know, due to their control of the narrative, the government has been able to categorize the Black Panther Party as a bunch of gun-toting, you know, menaces to the society, criminals. And the reality is that I joined the Black Panther Party because I loved my people, and they were oppressed people. And in the Black Panther Party, I learned to love oppressed people globally, all oppressed peoples. And what we did was in our communities, in the Black community, the Black Panther Party looked around and they identified what the people needed. They polled the people to find out what they needed. And then they designed means and methods of providing for those needs. because the government was not doing that. We had no support. We had no representatives in government, in the seats of government at that time. We barely had the right to vote. In most cases, we didn't have the right to vote. We were classified as second-class citizens. And so we were denied access to, to things that we needed. So we started, we stopped looking for help from the government and started trying to find ways to do for ourselves. And in the process, we were trying to empower our people. And personal empowerment is extremely important. And to do that, you had to break the shackles off the minds of the people, elevate the consciousness of the people, stand the people up, and then they could do for themselves. The social programs the survival programs, sometimes people could characterize them as social programs, but these were survival programs pending revolution, a revolutionary change in a system that was racist and oppressive. So that was our goal. And the programs, things like free breakfast for school children. A lot of our kids were going to school. They couldn't concentrate on doing the classwork or what was going on in the classroom because they were hungry, And we started getting up early in the morning, cooking the food. First, we got resources from the businesses who were usually owned by people outside of the community to donate to our programs, our breakfast programs. And then we would prepare the meals and serve the kids and send them off to school. And they would go off energized and happy and with full bellies. And in doing that, we made connections with the parents, and the community recognized that and started supporting us. And we had broad-based community support as a result. And we also knew there was a need to protect our communities from extrajudicial killings, where like today, we're being gunned down in the streets today, like we were back in the 60s. And that was one of the main reasons the party was formed to begin with, to protect our communities, to defend our communities, to educate them as to their legal rights, and to patrol the police and make sure they weren't arrestees. And we were more or less occupied by the police in our communities. They weren't there to serve and protect us. They were there to serve and protect the interest of people, business owners who lived outside of the community and their businesses. And so we patrolled the police and we watched them as they went about their business in our communities. And we would intercede on behalf of someone that was being jacked up by the police and explain them their constitution and legal rights. And that, of course, was not appreciated by the status quo, the government. The government was threatened by that and they declared us the greatest threat to the internal security of the country. We were feeding our kids. We were protecting our communities. We had survival programs like food giveaways and shoe giveaways and clothing giveaways. There's a food giveaway in New York City today by former members of the Black Panther Party. We did things like that. We provided escort services to elderly people who went shopping for food and stuff, so that they weren't victimized by, criminal elements. People would call the Black Panther Party to settle domestic conflicts. We would intercede, and we didn't call the police into our communities anymore because we knew that they would come in using lethal force. And that's one of my messages to people today. Don't call the police into you. Make that a last resort, because the police are not there to protect and defend you, to serve our communities. So, the survival programs became the major threat to the establishment, because it was not only serving the needs of the community, it was elevating the consciousness of the people. And that frightened the establishment, the authorities, the powers that be. And that brought down COINTELPRO actions against us. And we were the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. And that was a constitutional and right. And we utilized that to try to defend ourselves and our communities. But that was not our principal or primary purpose. We were there, we were servants of the people, and doing things that the government should have been doing. And when we did that, it was embarrassing to the government, it shamed the government, and that's why you have breakfast for school children in schools today. That was started by the Black Panther Party and other organizations like the American Indian Movement, the Young Lords and the Brown Berets took up that same practice and began to do the same things. And not just here, this was global. We had Black Panther Party parties pop up in Australia and England and in New Zealand and there's places like that. In the Middle East, in Palestine, there were Black Panther parties, you see, because we were serving the people, we were fighting for the oppressed on a global level. We had an international section in Algeria. Our headquarters was in Algeria, and we were linking up with those who were fighting to defend the oppressed globally. And that's why we became such a threat, and they set out to destroy us with these COINTELPROs. But those of us who survived that are still working, doing the work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm extraordinarily moved by just that glimpse into the history that you lived. And we are just so blessed to have you here today to impart this wisdom with our audience here. So thank you. And um, there's so much more we could talk about. I feel like we could go on forever and really just learn from each other. And I appreciate the shout out to the American Indian movement and the Young Lords and the organizations that really brought together what at the time helped make up the Rainbow Coalition for Justice. And to hear that the food distribution in New York that is rooted in the work that you did so many years ago is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. I know there's also a program in Oakland called the People's Kitchen Collective. There are several other organizations. We at Urban Partners, our food distribution program also, before the pandemic, we had tutoring for school children and other associated programs. And we also find a lot of our inspiration in the work of the Panthers. So thank you for sharing that with us. And we'll go into a little detail on our next go around. I'm going to go back to Carlos. And over the next little 3 minutes or so, Carlos, can you talk to us a little bit about both the work of the women and the types of weights that the women carry when it comes to union mutual aid organizing? And I'd also like to talk a little bit about the mutual part. Part of the beauty of mutual aid is that it's not charity. In mutual aid, or these, what we now call mutual aid, right? But these types of community programs that both, provide and also ask you to provide, it lifts us up, because if we stand in line for a charity service, we are humbling ourselves to ask for something from someone sort of above us, right? But when we create mutual aid, we allow a participation that, I might not have money for food, but if you give me food, I can tutor your child, right? Or if even something as simple as, you give me acupuncture, I do your nails. We can provide the things that we need to each other so that we can operate outside of capitalism, right? We are sort of, even in our major cities, we are layering the ability to operate outside of capitalism onto our society. And COVID has provided an ability to level that up in some ways. So again, Carlos, let's talk a little bit about the work of the women and the mutual part of mutual aid for maybe 3 minutes.
Yes. Well, mutual aid is pretty much the voluntary exchange of resources and services for mutual benefit. So when we look at society today and who are leading the efforts to bring justice, to bring help for those that are struggling, is the women. We cannot fool ourselves. The vast majority of our leaders today are women, very powerful. Why? Because I think that part of it is because they have experienced themselves in life so much oppression, to the point that now they have been able to participate because they push themselves to do this, because they have been made themselves available, because they volunteer. This is why you see a lot of the women really bringing their powerful voices and uniting the communities. Here in Southern California, one of the things that I done was, immediately when the pandemic hit, was to call to those communities that I have worked with in the past, whether it be in the South Bay, in the west part of Los Angeles, the east side, or the north side. And, I was looking at the list that I had of the people that I communicate with, and a lot of them are with women. And they are there on the front lines dealing with the unhoused. They are there dealing with people that are finding difficulty staying in their homes and facing eviction. So what are some of the things that they are doing is they are calling for community meetings. They're engaging the people. They know where the resources are and who are the ones that need it. Because why? Because they are there in the schools. They are participating in our communities, whether it be on simple things like the neighborhood councils. So they are in touch with the needs of the people. And what a better way to be able to look for resources than to those people that know where they are. And again, this is all a learning process for a lot of people. And the role that I see that women are taking right now in mutual aid is in organizing, is bringing people together. And that's even learned through motherhood. You know, our mothers, my mother was able to make something sometimes out of nothing. You know, we are communities that are poor, and we have to learn to be able to multiply the bread, if you will. And that's what a lot of the women are so good at. They know how to budget. They know how to make little things, big things with little. And so we are learning so much from our leaders. But one thing that I gotta say that now is really important is for our young women, you know, to be to reach out to them and to help them succeed, to give them the resources that they want, because they have a lot of ideas, and they know how to bring it home. They know how to bring success to our communities.
Thank you, Carlos. And I love what you said about how women can often sort of make something out of nothing, or multiply the resources. And that's extraordinarily brilliant and a great insight. We see that even, at our weekly food distribution. Lunch by Lupe is famous now, and Lupe is an amazing volunteer with the church at the food bank, where she takes pretty much whatever we have for the week, whatever we get, and it's always a surprise. And she makes lunch for 50 volunteers every Saturday, out of what seems to me to be thin air. So thank you. That's it's a great insight. And so I'll go back to Frankie. Let's talk a little bit, in your experience, about the work of the women, the type of weight that the women carry, and also the mutual part of mutual aid.
Yeah, sure. You know, for us, women have always led in our communities when it comes to, you know, the things that we do for our people. You know, we live in a time where society has taught us about, you know, how to look at life is I, me, I. And traditionally, it was always about we and us, you know, we and us. And the women, you know, the elders, the aunties and the grandmas, um, have always been, you know, that voice and that forefront of reminding us and keeping us on that path. And, you know, I'm grateful, you know, you talk about the work that, you know, and the importance of what the women, have done in our communities and are continuing to do in our communities. You know I wouldn't be where I am at today, who I am today, without, you know, the grandmas and aunties in my life growing up, and remembering some of them, like, you know, Grandma Morningstar and Rebecca and Rhonda and Gloria and all these, you know, beautiful, powerful women that took the lead on protecting, you know, our people, protecting our lands and our sacred sites. And, you know, and it's always such a beautiful, inspiring and motivating thing to see. And even in today's time, when you look at the mutual aid that we're doing in our communities, it's about doing it because you care. It's about doing it because we're human beings, and it's about doing it because it's what's right. And what I have found, I tell people all the time that, when we go out and we feed our people, we're out here just to help and feed our people, to take care of each other, look out for one another. We're not there to, take pictures and try to show what we're doing and the work that we're doing. We're there just to do what it is that we're supposed to be doing. So, when we share, pictures of things that we're doing, it's always before and after, never during the actual project, whether we're feeding the unhoused relatives or delivering foods to our families and elders and wisdom keepers that need that aid. It's about, just being, a human being, caring for one another, being sincere about that love and that compassion and understanding. that, you know, we're all connected and we're all related, and we need to support each other, especially during hard times. So, you know, when you talk about mutual aid, it's, you know, again, it comes down to that mentality of we and us, and, you know, not the I and me. And you know, and they have done that. You know, I can't even express how amazing these projects that we have been facilitating in Society of Native Nations and the American Indian Movement and all the different states that these mutual aid projects are being facilitated in their own communities, where they're taking care of the people, whether it be food distribution, feeding the unhoused, medical, what we call elder support network, checking in, making sure, you know, do they need a ride to, you know, to the store to get their medications, or do they need their lawn cut? You know, do they need help getting the trash out to the curb? Whatever it may be, you know, it's about taking, you know, reminding ourselves of the very thing that we always used to do, because it was a part of who we were, how we lived our lives, and how do we incorporate more of that into our everyday lives. And for me, it's always been, you know, it always comes back to those council of grandmothers. You know, I remember being up in Arizona in ceremony, and, you know, these 7 grandmothers come out and we're trying to make the decision on what to do at this gathering. And it's like we're all sitting there waiting for these grandmas to tell us, you know, like what's the right decision or what's the right path to take. And it's the most powerful, most beautiful thing I've ever seen when I see them come together, and the time, the sincerity, and the effort that comes out of them because of that love they have for their people. It's absolutely beautiful. It's powerful. And I think, you know, the elders today, one of my elders, Robert John Knapp, he says, you know, a lot of the problems that we have today is because we've taken and we don't give back as much as we've taken. And the only way to fix that is with love. You know, like, you know, you love your mom, you love your children, you don't want no harm to come to them. So if you love your land, if you love the water, if you love the air, you don't want that harm to come to it. You know, so treat it with love, and we can fix a lot of the problems that we have today. He says we've forgotten our first contract that we have with, you know, life and the existence of life. You know, when we come into this world, into the physical world, you know, we have that contract, and that contract is that breath of life. It's the very first thing you do when you come into this world, is to breathe. And what is breathing? You breathe in, you take. You breathe out, you give back. You breathe in, you take. You breathe out, you give back. And then the trees and everything that we coexist with take what we give and then give back within what we take. It's that cycle of life, that agreement. And the elders say, if you don't like those contracts, or you don't like those kinds of rules, then stop breathing and see what happens. You know, we have a commitment, we have a responsibility, but we've been taking more than we've been giving back. So we need to start doing our part if we want a healthy environment and future for our next generation. So yeah, that's, you know, what I've been taught over the years and what I believe. I'm very grateful to the aunties and grandmas and women of our community for being those wisdom keepers and passing those down to our children and to us as individuals, so we can continue to keep that a part of our everyday life and our humanness.
Thank you. And I need you to know that I'm now incorporating the term wisdom keepers into my language. That is how I now refer to elders,
Good.
because that is the most appropriate way to refer to elders. So thank you.
Good.
Extraordinary. And I think that also your analogy, or you know, the analogy that was spoken to you, that you just spoke to us regarding, you know, the breath, right? I just want to underscore and repeat what you said. You know, we have to give and take, right? We do a lot of taking, and our society encourages a lot of taking. And you know, if we think about our giving and taking as the breath, it has to be equal. Then just try and stop breathing if you don't like that, and see how well it works. I love that. I love that. I love a little snark to it, so I'm with it. And so, okay, let's go now to Hank. Mr. Jones, please, let's hear a little bit about the work of the women, specifically in the Black Panther Party, in your experience, the different types of work that they did, their contributions, and also a little bit about the mutual part of mutual aid and the difference that it makes when people are provided with an opportunity to give back once they have received.
Well, I've often said that if it hadn't been for the women of the Black Panther Party, the Black Panther Party would have gone out of existence early, very early. There wouldn't have been a Black Panther Party. The women, and I say this, if you want to plan something, you can get a bunch of people together and you can, discuss it and examine it and all this. But if you want to get something done, get some women involved, you see. And that's why I like working with women. I work with Black Lives Matter now, and they are amazing, They just blow my mind at how they go about things. And it's like just watching women do work. My mother was like that. My mother was the original Lucy. She never took no for an answer. She never let anything stop her. That she wanted to do, she would find a way, you see. And I try to be like my mother. She was a role model for me. My father was a supporter, and this is what I try to do with women. I will support them. I have an amazing, amazing wife. And she also blows my mind sometimes. She can get more done in a day than I can, in an hour than I can do in a day sometimes. It's just all energy, it's just amazing. But yeah, the Black Panther Party, the women did the work. I mean, we were all soldiers, you see. There were issues, yes. There was some, not everyone in the Black Panther Party was of the same mind. And so we had to combat, the disrespect or the marginalization of women in the Black Panther Party. And but they were there doing the work just like anybody else, And even in Los Angeles here, when they had that famous shootout at the Panther headquarters, 41st and Central, there were 2 women in there in that office. And and one of the first Panthers doing the police patrols was a woman. So, and a lot of the leaders, and Elaine Brown, who was a Los Angeles Panther, ended up running the Black Panther Party, you see. So, and, you had Kathleen Cleaver and, just they stepped up and dealt with the situation as it was needed, And we were acting to the conditions at the time, you see. I mean, you look back on it today, a lot of what we did might not make sense to people, but we were reacting to conditions that were prevalent at the moment. We did the best we could with what we had. And that's what women do, to me. So in the Black Panther Party, it was all about sharing and giving and serving, you see, others. And that's why I was attracted to the Black Panther Party. We were, the men in the Black Panther Party, most of them were getting locked up, and you know, that was one of the methods that the government used to deplete the funds that the Black Panther Party were able to generate. They kept us fighting court cases and things. You'd go out to sell a Panther paper, you might get arrested 5 times a day. And so you have to pay bail and stuff. Meanwhile, somebody's got to hold down the office and stuff, and run the party, the day-to-day stuff. And the women did that. See, I was arrested I've been arrested 4 times in my life. And everything continued as it was, you see. So it's the same thing with the most recent time I was arrested was in 2007. So it was part of a case, the San Francisco 8, and they were trying to retroactively charge us as domestic terrorists. And while I was locked up, my wife was out here organizing the neighborhood, the church, and everybody, you know, and so, and you know, that was amazing to me, because I had only been married a year when all of this stuff started happening. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to lose my wife. And, but no, she stepped up, you know. She believed in me enough to step up and do that. And I'll always be grateful to her for that. No, I love women, because I had a good mother. And I respect women. And the women that run the Black Lives Matter movement, I think are doing an amazing job in all aspects of government that they're involved in. And it's the day of the woman, as far as I'm concerned. It's time that women get out from behind men and step up and be who they are. You know.
Well, thank you.
You've always run things. You might as well be out front with it now. I don't have a problem with that, you know.
Thank you. That's it's a wonderful brief description of the legacy that you're speaking about, and thank you for the ode to your wife. I'm sure she has endured many ups and downs throughout the activism and the personal relationship and all kinds of things, and those are some of the ways that we do persevere. And so, you know, having a wonderful partner by your side through those trying times does make it all that much, I would think, you know, survivable, you know, a little easier to get through day to day. So thank you for lifting up your wife, and thank you to all 3 of you for rising to the challenge of lifting up the women. It was a part of the intention of today's conversation, and I'm deeply grateful, and I've learned a lot just from what we've talked about so far. So I want to do, Hank, I just want to say our mutual friend, Lawrence Reyes, who connected us for this event, he was not able to get on the event, but he wanted me to let you know that he never would have become the person that he's striving to be still today if it wasn't for you and the Black Panther Party and the work that was done at that time. So shout out to Lawrence, and also to Lydia Ponce, who connected me to Frankie Orona, and we were able to build this beautiful panel together. And so we'll do our last round of you know, hearing from our panelists. And we want to talk about mutual aid today. That's kind of where I come in, right? As I said, I'm a newer mutual aid organizer, operating under that term, mutual aid, which is just, community care and, developing systems and functions outside of capitalism and outside of systemic racism and patriarchy that impact our ability to get to food, to get to medicine, to get to education, to get to, travel and experience and all the things that we so strive for and we so deserve in this life. And we have the ability to provide these things for each other without attaching a dollar amount to them. So I would love to hear from each of our panelists regarding what you think we can learn from our experiences of the past, from our roots in the Black and Brown struggles, from the experience of attempting to overcome patriarchy in our spaces. How do we go forward? Let's do 3 or 4 minutes. Carlos, what do you think?
Well, I think that first of all, we need to understand and take a good assessment of where we are right now. Things are changing by the minute, by the day. It's just one thing after the other. We are facing right now multiple crises all the way around. So we have to take a good assessment of what's going on, and we have to be able to communicate with the people. This is not about my organization is doing more than yours and yours, is this and stuff. No, we got to cut that out. What we have to do is bring people together. This is about community. This is about sharing resources. This is by bringing the minds of those community leaders that have done this over the years and saying, okay, how can we move forward? We are dealing with very serious crises, and it may get worse for us because at least they telling us right now, there is no money. They are telling us right now that we're sending you stimulus checks and you should be okay with that. We know that it's not. There are millions of people out there right now that are facing eviction, and we need to be able to learn to organize in case there is no more moratoriums. When that ends, where do we go from there? People are still going to be facing eviction. So the time is now for us to start talking to each other, for us to stop looking to promote ourselves and rather start promoting our communities by engaging and laying aside our differences and be able to say, Black, Brown, Asian, whoever it may be, we are in this thing together and we need to learn to work with each other. I think that, those things are already breaking down because we understand that if we don't do this now, no one is going to do it for us. Big Brother is not coming to help us. We got to help ourselves. We got to learn from each other, and we have to be able to lift each other up and promote each other, promote our leaders, and make sure that our voices are being heard to the lowest part of our communities, especially those that have whose voice have been oppressed for so long.
Thank you so much. And back to the lesson that you gave in your first segment, Carlos, regarding the ways in which we can bring people together. I think that's a big part of it. There's that I was fascinated to hear from Mr. Jones regarding the fact that it was through providing breakfast to children that we then got the parents involved, and I think that's brilliant. And that's a lesson to how when we show up for service, people do respond. So I think that's wonderful. Thank you, Carlos. Let's go to Frankie. And Frankie, just tell us a little bit about, I know you talked about the work that you've been doing through the last year and recently, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how we carry the lessons from the past forward and the ways in which we can avoid some common mistakes, and we can grow and we can build on what we've built over the past year or two in the response to COVID.
Yeah, I kind of, what I call it is like deprogramming, so you can reprogram yourself with some of the old ways, right? The old form of thinking and how we took care of each other as a community and how we acted as a community. When you say, hey, that's our community, that's our family, those are our relatives, I think acting like it, more is probably the most important thing, action, right? Other than just words. And, when we talk about mutual aid, we talk about the things that will help us to continue to do that. We're talking about like food sovereignty and education and healthcare and overall equality, within our society and our own communities, and how we, work with each other, and and how we really respond to, when we say, we're standing here with you in solidarity. Like, what does that really mean? How does that look like? And I think when we take into account, how that's going to look like going forward, I've seen some very powerful things come out of the movements in the last 5 years. And some of the most powerful things are, becoming, dictating and being your own narrative to the stories that are going on within your own communities, making sure, becoming your own media, becoming the awareness, the message of your own community, because the larger part of society, they're not going to take you into consideration like they should be doing. They have their own agendas, they have their own way of trying to control the narratives. And so I think taking control of that, really working hard to get the messages out, really trying to build that unity and community and network amongst the many different organizations and communities, and tribal communities and non-tribal communities, like Carlos was saying. It's very important in how we move forward, how we work with one another. I remember speaking at this environmental conference, and I started off saying, we need to start this conference off like an AA meeting. My name is Frankie, and I am here for this environmental conference, but I want to first acknowledge that I am part of the problem. I took an Uber here, I flew a plane, I drove a car. So, now that I have acknowledged that, now that we can all acknowledge that we're all part of the problem, nobody should down anyone else for being more environmental friendly than the next person, because we all contribute to it in some degree or another. So now that we've acknowledged it, now that we can see and embrace, the past and the history, maybe now that we've embraced it, the healing can begin, and then we can move forward from that healing process, right? And in a good way. And so I think acknowledging those things, embracing them, so that we can move together, find those right things, and how we can work together to take care of our communities and give that mutual aid to one another is crucial. I think that we always have to take those kinds of things into consideration when it comes to bringing our communities together. So yeah, I think those conversations, I remember a time when we talked about, when I was young, you would see the elders come out, and the youth would follow them. When they would come out, they would inspire them. And now I think in today's time, I've seen where the youth come out and then the elders follow. And so, it's powerful, and I remember being young in my teens, where the aunties and the grandmas would come out and the whole tribe would follow, and it was the most powerful thing to see. It's just amazing. And, I was so grateful to be a part of it, and I think realizing those things and really talking about those things help. We talk about historical trauma. There's no such thing. Historical trauma means that it was left in our past, in our history. There's no such thing. It's just trauma, because it continues to happen today. Different tactics, different methods, different ways that they implement that trauma. But it's trauma. Whether you're talking about policy, whether you're talking about the injustices and inequalities in our communities, it exists, and hasn't gone anywhere, and we need to continue to keep addressing those things. And I think that that's how we really facilitate mutual aid within our communities, is embracing the past so we don't repeat it. We learn from it, heal from it, and move together as a community and with sincerity.
Thank you. And thank you for naming the fact that the trauma is ongoing. We haven't actually solved any of this, unfortunately. We make progress, we have little legislation here and there, or we have social growth here and there. But certainly the struggle continues. And The struggle to protect the most vulnerable always has to be at the forefront. And so the trauma is actually extraordinarily ongoing, because until we root out systemic racism, systemic patriarchy, and a system that requires us to sell ourselves to the highest bidder, we're not going to be able to move past these traumatic experiences. Yeah. And we layer them, right? Like, parents do the best they can, but we carry that, we carry our parents' imperfections with us. And so it's incumbent upon us to create a society that helps us lessen those things so that we can be the best for each other and ourselves. So thank you for naming that. I really appreciate that. And I will go then, of course, to Hank Jones. Hank, I would love to hear from you, perhaps, the ways in which you see the lessons of what you lived being carried on, for instance, like you said, through the work of Black Lives Matter, but also, the ways in which the community care has carried on. And what would you like to see from today's activists when it comes to community care and mutual aid? And you're on mute, Hank. You got to, there you go.
I'm just thinking of the phrase, less is more, and it reminds me of, as a child, I was raised by a village, northern Mississippi, under Klan terror, So we had to band together and form a community and support each other. We had very little, but in a way we had more because of the external pressures and the lack of goods and services and stuff like that. So we shared whatever we had. And that built a sense of community. See? And I've always, as an organizer, community organizer, my goal was try to build that sense of community. And to get people to understand that, what's important is the connection and the sharing of what little you do have. You don't need to have piled up a bunch of wealth to be satisfied. I know in this world we live in today, where they're constantly programming you to want the latest and the greatest and the biggest and the best and all of that. To me, that's, you pay a price for that. You forget the little things, like you don't know what enough is anymore. And that's a problem. I say we were better off sometimes. I say this because we had less and we were more focused on the human aspects of things, the humanity of each other. And that extends to the environment and everything else. You become more conscious of things like that when you are able to block out the surrounding noise and stuff, And COVID, to me, kind of served that purpose. It kind of it gave us time to look within, actually. Some people took advantage of that, of course, some didn't. But we were all doing time here for about a year. In a sense, that's a benefit, I don't wish that on, COVID on anybody, but just that having that time to block out the world around you sometimes, and focus on, if you're wise, you focus on the internal things, When I was incarcerated, like I said, I've been incarcerated 4 times. I always went within. I always took that time to meditate and fast and try to delve within myself to clean out the crap that was in there, and see if I could improve myself and escape incarceration that way. I always had this, they could lock up my body, but they couldn't lock up my spirit. And that's what made me able to survive those hardships. So I think the sense of community and the sharing that kind of implies is what is what's needed now. And a little hardship might bring that into focus.
So I'm sensing a common thread here. All 3 of our speakers have talked about building a sense of community and the ways in which we can bring community together, and then, channeling the power of community to reach certain goals. And that's why, I think it's important to point out the fact that our community organizers are yes, in many cases there are leaders, but they are more often and more importantly our servants, right? And so when I do community organizing, I always try to make sure I'm coming from a place of servitude and humble giving, and those are the ways in which we attract people. People don't want to come to a space that's filled with a bunch of egos bouncing off each other. They want to come to a space that feels welcoming and that feels humble and that feels like everyone is invited, and you're not going to be judged for this ability or that ability, or that this lived experience or that perspective, when in reality, what we're talking about is freedom and justice and liberation for all of us. It starts with the freedom and justice and liberation of our Black and Indigenous communities and of women and of the most oppressed. But what we're doing is together we're bringing the working class and the entire oppressed society into a moment where we can work together to make change. And that always starts with building community. So if our listeners and our viewers are taking things away from this conversation, I hope you are. I hope you've got your pen and paper out, because this has been an extraordinary conversation. I think one of the major takeaways that I'm feeling is the common goal of the sense of community that's needed to get this work done. And so we have a couple of questions and we have a few moments. They did give us permission to go over because of our delay in the beginning, so thank you. And we have a couple of questions from the audience. And let's see, let me take a look in our chat. For Hank, you mentioned Black Lives Matter. Can you give us maybe a minute or two of a compare and contrast and what you love about the movement of where it is today, and perhaps some wisdom they could use that you'd love to see them incorporate going forward?
Yeah, they're young like us, like the Black Panther Party was young, but and they're learning as they go along. They're learning on the job, That's my value to them. I try to show them some of the pitfalls and benefit of some of the mistakes and successes that we had. But other than that, I try to stay out of their way and let them do their thing. And like I say, you know, they are everything that you want in a kid you're raising. You know, they're like my sons and daughters. You know, you want them to be better and smarter and quicker than you are, but you know that they don't have the kind of wisdom that comes with age and experience. So that's what you can try to provide, you know. But other than that, they're doing fine to me. You know, I don't try to tell them what to do. You know, I just tell them what we did and don't do this. You know, you end up with the same results. So, and they come up with, you know, they conceive means and methods. And there are things that people don't know about Black Lives Matter and movement for Black lives and organizations like that. They have, you know, goals and plans and things for a better world. And, you know, the world that they live in, I don't live in any longer. You know, you know, it's a digital world, and I'm old school. Some things I don't understand, and I think that I would like to see more up close and personal interaction. Other than that, I don't really have a criticism, you know, but I just think that sitting down face to face with people as often as possible is better than not, you know. Yeah.
Absolutely. And some of the greatest experiences I've had with the Black Lives Matter movement were the weekly protests at Jackie Lacey's office, where you know, it started out. I attended, you know, on and off pretty regularly over the 3 years, and it started out as your standard protest, and it grew into this weekly community space that was so welcoming, and you could count on it, and to listen to the families, and to be present for the land acknowledgement, and to pour the libations, and to say the asada at the end together. All those community building experiences brought us together. And you know, one of the things that I love that Black Lives Matter Los Angeles does is channel that energy to their general meetings, where there are spaces for brown people to learn how to support Black lives, and for white people to learn how to support Black lives. And I think that that sort of um, maybe academic is the wrong word, but like a studious approach to how to be in this movement has been extraordinarily helpful for me to learn how to be a white person in a place where we fight for justice and liberation. And one more note on their general meetings: the arts and culture committee tends to usually make a presentation at the Black Lives Matter Los Angeles monthly general meetings, and that has always, you know, lifted me up as well, because it's not just about, you know, the sort of ugliness of the struggle. It's also about joy, and it's about Black joy, and it's about the joy of the oppressed. And so, you know, that's my personal little bit of experience with working alongside Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. And I feel grateful to be a part of this movement in even a small way. So I'm glad that you brought it forward to now, because there's ways to get involved right now, today, this week. And I think that's important. I have a question for, let's see, for Carlos. How do we bring mutual aid groups together as part of a larger movement, so that community care and mutual aid is actually mutual and not charity work? So Carlos, can you talk to us a little bit about the difference between just giving and giving and giving, you know, and seeing our recipients as just that, recipients of care, and then what about when we come together? What about when we receive and we give? What if I receive food, but I give someone a ride? You know, things like that. How do we build that in a larger way in our major cities?
Well, again, mutual aid is the exchange of resources and services. One of the things that we have managed to do is I got in contact with different community leaders throughout Southern California, and I wanted to hear directly from them, what is it that they were lacking? What are some of the things that they needed? And, you know, to my surprise is that there were some things that they had plenty of, but that they needed other things, and they were willing to make exchanges. And they were telling me, look, I'm getting a lot of vegetables, for example, you know what I mean? But we need meat. And then talking to someone else, they were telling me they were getting a lot of meat and not enough vegetables. So what was important is for at least for me, was to be able to make those connections. You know, I found out this guy needs this and this other group needs that, and we began to exchange and being able to kind of even out and provide the areas that where they were lacking. And again, that comes through us being able to communicate, to talk to each other. You know, we don't know what's going on in East LA if the people from, let's say, South Central is not communicating with them. We don't know what their needs are. So we have to be able to connect people. I guess that's one of the strengths that I have, is that I'm able to connect people. But look, the bottom line is this: all of us know somebody. So what we have to do is start communicating and start finding out who has what and who's willing to give what and who needs what. All of us have something to offer, all of us, regardless of who we are. You know somebody that is a mechanic. You know somebody that knows how to cut hair. You know somebody that knows how to cook. You know somebody that is willing to drive because they have the afternoon off and is willing to provide their car so that they can take grandma to go get a shot or whatever the case is. So again, all that happens when we learn to communicate one with the other. That's how we built.
Thank you, Carlos. And, you know, for those who are based in Los Angeles or the Southern California area, Carlos is one of the community organizers, just carrying the weight of the world, but also making sure that people know each other, making these connections, lifting up growing community groups is a big part of what we're trying to do here in Los Angeles. And the leadership that Carlos has provided and the ways in which we lift up our up and coming, our youth. We cultivate new leaders. We help our growing organizations launch to their next level. Those are the ways that we can help make connections, right? We have a massive food distribution program in Koreatown, but we have a smaller one in South Central, and they can take some of what we can offer, right? So in those ways, you know, we push forward together outside of the boundaries that have been provided to us by a broken system or a system that doesn't care about us. And so let's make it brief, because we're about to go back to the main program of the California Progressive Alliance third annual convention. But I have a question for Frankie. One of our listeners, our viewers, would really like to know, how can we learn more about how to build sustainability into our services and our mutual aid programs? I think that struck with a lot of the viewers, that you make that so integral, and it's important, especially when we're serving the unhoused. We know that it's going into the landfill, or it's perhaps going into the ocean, into the street, into the ocean, and so we want to lessen that impact. How can we, as mutual aid organizers, keep a focus on that?
Yeah, I think you know, there's been people working on that for generations, right? You know, you talk about some of the women that have led a lot of these mutual aid projects, and even amongst the American Indian movement, where you had people like, you know, Pat Ballinger, Madonna Thunderhawk, Regina Brave, La Vida, and so many others that have taken care of the community and given us examples. Doing zero waste feedings in our community, which means you create that community, bring them together, use reusable products, plates and silverware, and wash and clean them, and as a community together you eat. It's funny, I always tell people, there's two things that Native people love to do the most. And, one of that, the first one is prayer. We love to pray because a lot of times that involves singing, right? We love to pray, we love to sing our songs. And the next one is we love to eat. We love to eat. We love food. We love food. And the reason why is because, we sit down and we share a meal, we share stories. A lot of those wisdom keepers share a lot of that wisdom that they've picked up throughout their years, and the years of life. And those experiences have become teachings for us that are trying to learn so we can continue to provide to our community. So I always ask people, when you're looking at trying to do things for your community, try to find those alternatives to petrochem products and fossil fuel products. We live in a time where we don't need as much. Teach and educate more about hemp textiles and so many other sugarcane products and bamboo, and there's so many different things that we can be doing to be more sustainable. You talk about sovereignty, food sovereignty, and other ways that we can take care within our communities and community gardens, community home gardens, creating a network of community home gardens so they can the community knows who to go to, for what type of fruit or food that's being grown, sharing, and becoming a true community when it comes to taking care of each other as a community. Because it's out there, it's happening already everywhere, and we just got to learn new ways to make it grow and to expand it and to share it, so that way it takes off on its own. So that's, I think that's how I would say, we would, that's how you work towards a more sustainable future and environment for our next generation, is invest more time into those types of projects.
I think that's important. It's not just about ordering the proper straws online. It's about a full lens of how we go about this. And at every step of the way, we can just make kind of slightly better decisions about the ways in which we go about the work, and the ways in which we clean up after ourselves, right? Personally, I'm a manager of a community center. Amongst the litany of things that we do in the community, this is one of them for me. And we're always on the struggle about how to be better about waste, especially knowing that a lot of what we give could end up as waste. We want to actually lessen that from our point, right? The beginning point. And we ask that of our companies, right? Like we ask that of McDonald's and Coca-Cola and Walmart and Amazon. We ask them to be more sustainable. We're trying to demand that they be more sustainable, and it's got to come from them, because one of the things when we talk about environmentalism is that, yes, it's nice when individuals make better decisions, but putting the onus on poor people trying to get to work and trying to eat lunch while they're at work is not the right approach, when we can make massive systemic impact if we hold large companies accountable for the root of these products, right?
And I usually say, yeah, you're completely, you said exactly what I would typically say when we say we want to make true change in our communities. It's great to do it within our own homes and our own communities and our own families, but you want to make true change, you gotta force that 1% that decides what the society and the people that live within the society become dependent on, right? Because they're concerned about their bottom line, more than the people themselves and our future well-being of that our next generation inherits. So yeah, we need to force that 1%, those corporations that dictate what our society becomes dependent on, to make those drastic changes, because it's needed now, right now, and more than ever right now is that time for that sustainable just transition. So yeah, I agree with you, Michelle, 100%.
The just transition. Thank you for getting that in there. The just transition to a more sustainable energy economy. So thank you to our panelists. What an incredible conversation. I could sit here for another couple hours with y'all. This was really just so inspiring. I had tears in my eyes and my heart pounding multiple times just listening to the wisdom and experience here on this event. And I want to encourage anybody watching or listening, you can email us at bootsonthegroundhq@gmail.com, and we will answer any of your follow-up questions. If you'd like to, find out more about our speakers or ask to be put in touch with them, we will gain their permission and see if we can make that happen. Please reach out. I know some of the other panels had slideshows and pictures and videos to show. We kept it bare bones with this one because we wanted to hear the words from the people who live these experiences and gain their wisdom. As the wisdom keepers, we are the wisdom receivers. And me as a millennial, I want to turn around and I want to thank Gen Z for all the work that they are doing, because it is about the up and coming generation, the next 7 generations that we're fighting for. Mother Earth is giving us an opportunity right now to not be shaken off like a dog shaking off the water. And let's take that. Let's do better. Let's build sustainable systems going forward. I want to thank also again Lydia Ponce and Lawrence Reyes for helping to make the connections on this call to the folks that have come to give their wisdom. Thank you to Frankie Orona and to Hank Jones and to Carlos Maroquin. Your wisdom is unparalleled. And if there's anything that we can do, that I can do to keep maintaining these connections or to provide access to the community or whatever it may be, if you're so inspired, so are we, and we're going to help move this thing forward. So we have incredible speakers coming up for the closeout of the 3rd Annual California Progressive Alliance Convention. And so thank you for your time. Thank you to Chris Shimizu and Lauren Hamill, our technicians, our tech people today. There they are. Hi, Chris and Lauren. You guys killed it. Amazing. We're deeply appreciative. And yeah, I think we can call it a wrap for today. So thank you to all 3 of you. I hope it's been a good experience for you as well.
Thank you, Michelle, for having us.
Haku, thank you. Thank you. Please be safe and take care of each other.
Of
Yeah,
course,
be
of
safe.
course.
Be safe, everybody.
And this session has been recorded. So just let us know if you'd like a copy and we will send it to you.